If you came to the infirmary at Fort Loudoun, it's very unlikely you would just see one person there. It wouldn't just be the surgeon's mate or Dr. Anderson. But we also had nurses. Many a commanding officer in the time of Fort Loudoun had rules that a wife could not be a nurse while the husband was a patient. A few of them went so far as to justify their reasoning, saying that the husband would get the most outstanding of care, but it'd be at the expense of all the other patients. And I've joked for years that probably depends on how long they'd been together. But the people that came to Fort Loudoun were there during a time of great change in medical treatment. You know, in an earlier age, if you were sick, it was because of your sin. We'd shake an olive branch over your head. You're cursed by the gods. That's about the best we could do for you. By the time of Fort Loudoun, we finally realized that there are some awfully sinful folks that seem to live a long, long life, and there are some awfully fine folks that die far too young. So they're coming up with medical theories. They're not discounting faith, but they're coming up with medical theories for illnesses. Now, we can look at some of them today and say they were absolutely wrong. But in most of them, you can see a medical theory. You can appreciate the thought process behind it. One of them that struck me, they thought fluid in your vital organs was a really bad thing, around your heart, around your lungs. But in most cultures, we were too dirty for invasive surgery to be anything less than a death sentence. About the only thing we can do is come up with another strategy. So they fell back on what they had seen, what they had experienced. We've all seen fluid in blisters. Made sense that could be the same fluid, so let's raise fluid, let's raise blisters to the surface of the skin, cut those blisters open, perfect treatment. Now, I don't recommend that anyone go home and try it. We know it's not the same fluid, but it was a logical thought process, I think. And they raised those blisters a couple of ways. The vial I'm holding right now has green blister beetles in it. Unfortunately, in the time of Fort Loudoun, these were known by the name of Spanish fly. If we dried that bug out and we ground it up with our mortar and pestle, from the look in some of the eyes in the very back, ma'am, I've found my first volunteer, I think. But we could work on this until it's essentially a bug powder and have you take just a little bit of it orally. It could absolutely kill you, though. It begs the question, why would we give that to you orally? In the time of Fort Loudoun, we believed if you were sick, we needed to do something to startle that body into working right again. We needed to shake it up and get everything working. One of the ways that they could do that was with this green blister beetle. Another thing that they did that we all hear about was the bloodletting. You know, I think most of us hear about the use of leeches, and they did use leeches in the age of Fort Loudoun. The Army usually didn't like those leeches, though. We preferred mechanical means. And we did that because leeches are messy. You have to keep them alive. It's kind of a delicate balance. You've got to feed them enough they don't die, but keep them hungry enough that they maintain some work ethics. The bloodletting wasn't as simple as just opening the veins, though. If you imagine I'm coming, ma'am, I'm going to open that vein on the forearm, and they did it in different places. With the fallen sickness, epilepsy, bottom side of the tongue was the preferred place. If I put the blade over the vein and quickly tap it into place, it's not that slow, steady pressure. I'm getting right in there. You look very excited. And then we would open the vein. Now I'm seeing some weak eyes, some troubled faces. Don't worry if anyone passes out. Implied consent is not a new thought. We'll take care of it. And we've got everything we need. Now, once we've made the incision, let's say that we decide we need to bleed you some more. We need to draw more blood. Instead of making a second incision, what I'm more likely to do is heat up this cupping glass and place it over the incision we've already made. Like a vacuum, like that change in the temperature, it's going to suction blood into this bleeding ball. And frequently we would have dents made in this to show just how much blood we had taken. Again, there was a slight miscalculation on how much blood was in the body, but we could keep track of how much taken out. They had come up with a number of different improvements, but perhaps some of the greatest ones were with the amputation. In an earlier age, the amputation was pretty brutal.